Oh, there's a button. Let's click it. The virus.
I do it all the time. Okay, we are live. Hello and welcome to the Enlightenment Exchange, where we have some really divine conversations through our divine connections.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So hello, John. Hello, Melanie. It's nice to see you again this week. And as always, we've been already chatting for 10 or 15 minutes ahead of time. And but I promise we weren't talking about the topic that we're going to look at today. So I wasn't sure, how to go about this one, but I'm excited about this. So how was your week, you guys? All good?
I'm trying out some new tools for the business. Surprise,
of course
surprise.
You are.
Of course I am. That's what I do.
Anything good? Anything cool and interesting?
I've got a really, really, really interesting email tool that anyway, it's like, ooh. So, and again, I always buy my tools that are one-time costs instead of subscriptions. I'm just over the moon excited about this. And the guy
what do you call it? Like for an email list?
Yeah, but it's really specific about deliverability, like super high on the, like, we know how to deliver. Here are the 15 things you need to do, and we can guarantee your emails will be delivered. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
You mean deliver to an inbox as opposed to a spam folder?
To a
spam,
delivered to an inbox.
Because I'm pretty sure they get delivered.
And read and seen.
Read and seen is another story altogether, right?
Yep.
So yeah.
But anyway, very excited about the tool. Soul wise, I had a bit of a week, and I'm kind of back on track today. So things are good.
Oh, back on track is good. I can tell you that email is an enigma for so many.
It is.
It's really tough. Really tough. We got our pool open, uncovered. It's filtering now. Nice. Although I will say, even though I don't want to get in it, it's just cloudy. My son looked at it and he said, I've been in water way worse than that, because he'll go in a lake. I don't go in a lake.
You don't go in lakes.
And a plus, there's no fish in the pool. So,
right.
Because rule number one is, I don't swim with
no algae,
fish
no fish.
Gross.
So I'm excited about that. We'll see how that goes. First time in is usually a little tough because the water's probably still around 68 or 70. I don't know though. It's been pretty hot. So I'm excited because, water is really good for me and my connection. And I get a lot of information in the pool. I created a whole Reiki system, walking circles in the pool a couple years ago.
Cool.
Yeah. Yet another one of my programs that is already written and
you just need to bring people to the pool.
There. Yeah. People have tried it out, but that's how it goes. How about you, Melanie?
I'm good. My baby girl started driving school. She's been driving for a year, but she started actual driving school. It's just they grow up way too fast. And just doing business stuff and managing chaos with the kids. And spiritually, a little weird. I've had some ups and downs, but I'm working through them. You know how it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a daily part of work.
Yeah, for a lot of people it is. Right? So that's what we're going to talk about today is change. And so before we came on, I wanted to look at what types of change are there, just to see, kind of what was out there. And this small list I came up with, and this is kind of what I had in mind, is there's anticipated change, and then unanticipated change, and then non-events, and then sleepers, the kind of things that sneak up on you. So there's,
cool.
I thought so too. And I wanted to go back to see what the non-event is. Non-event life transitions are all about expecting one thing and getting another. So, I think that's kind of like the story of this spiritual journey, isn't it?
It is.
In a lot of cases, that non-event right there. But, I think the biggest struggle for a lot of people are either the unanticipated changes or those sleepers, the ones that sneak up on you, right? Like, but they hit you, they get you so gradually that when they finally manifest, they kind of, freak you out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what I was thinking of, and I'd love to hear what you think. When we have kids, or when people have kids, when we have kids, we're always told, and I do believe this, that kids thrive on security and on
predictability
and routine, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. And whenever things go out of whack or shift because of one reason or another, that's when they kind of lose their stuff a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. So how do we transition out of that need for that predictability as we get older? Is there a natural process that happens, or do we really have to consciously prepare ourselves to say, well, things are going to be different now. Bedtime's not going to be at the same time, and somebody's not going to come along and cook all our meals, and how much of it is autopilot and how much of it do you have to do consciously, and how much of this kind of change do we make hard on ourselves because we are afraid of change? Mm-hmm. How many people are afraid of change, right? Do you know what I mean?
So this is related. It doesn't completely answer your question, but I think it's important to say that one of the best skills you can have is to be able to go forward with incomplete information, meaning you don't know everything, but you're still willing to say, we're going to move ahead. We're going to change. I don't know what this change is going to look like, but I'm willing to say we're going to go for it anyway. And if that can be taught to a child or happen often enough that they kind of get it, I think that's a life skill that helps.
Okay, so that's interesting. So bringing the parenting back into it, mm-hmm. right? Parenting, giving them a routine and giving them structure is one thing, but teaching them how change doesn't have to really disrupt the structure. Mm-hmm. Because even though we're going to do this with incomplete information, maybe your bedtime is still going to be the same, or we're going to stay somewhere else, but your bedtime will be the same, or we're going to be staying at home, but you're going to be up late. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
or no matter what, we're going to be with you. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. Wow.
And I think a lot of people even if it changes, you're still safe, and still find your safety within yourself, and keep teach them how to ground within themselves.
That's good. That's real good.
That's really good.
So that, because it's going to happen. So I think that as we grow up, it's either forced on us, or we're lucky enough to have parents who kind of teach us how, right? Because it's inevitable. Mm-hmm. And I think, we can kind of help our kids ease into it and give them life lessons and teach them how to ground themselves and because it's inevitable, and just tell them it's going to happen. That's life.
Change is coming. And here's how we roll.
Sometimes I'm, how snarky I am. I'll tell my kids, life is a disappointment, then you die. But then I'm like, no, but just kidding. Because I say stuff like that to get their attention. They're like, Mom. And then I'm like, okay, now that I have your attention.
Okay, we should point out that your kids are also bigger.
Right.
The youngest is 9.
Yeah, but I mean, mostly you're not saying this to a 4-year-old.
Oh no, I'm not. I would never say that to a 4-year-old. No,
right,
I say it to the teenagers.
So just for
just for clarity.
For clarity, right? Yeah, because this is on video.
Yes. But, okay, perfect example. My 16-year-old, she'll be 17 next month, is wanting to buy a car. She was looking at one. It didn't work out. Cool. Everything is, and she was a little disappointed. Everything's still going to be fine. Everything's going to work out. Trust that the perfect car will come along and it will work. And this one just didn't work out. It's fine. And teach them how to kind of recenter themselves and acknowledge and sit with their disappointment, and then just be like, okay, but yes, and yes, that happened. Yes, I lost that car. And I know that I'm going to get one that's perfect for me, one that's I'm going to be able to afford, that kind of thing.
On that same note, I know when I lost a really close friend because they decided they didn't like me anymore in elementary school, right?
Oh.
If I had some tools like, how do you get over that? How do you move on? How do you realize, yes, and there'll be other friends that come your way, but, right? Wow, if I had some kind of way to manage that change when I was a kid, that would have been really helpful. The whole social cliquishness and yeah, right.
Believe me, I completely, not only can I relate, I wasted decades of my life dealing with those, trying to fit in, dealing with those triggers. I posted something today and it said, here's me I'm low key. What did it say? I'm low key upset about how my skinny self thought I was fat. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yes.
Because of what other people said or thought, or, the other people in the neighborhood or whatever.
Taking their words as more valid than your own.
Right. And because let's face it, you can't, you need a permit to have a gun. You've got to have a license to drive. You got to have a card to vote. But anybody can have a kid and raise one. Like, right? Like, there's no qualifications. There's no entry test. And while I believe that most people do the best that they can with what they have, I think a lot of bullying and a lot of the things that go on in schools nowadays are some kind of trauma response
from
those kids. Right. But those kids that are bullies, that is that bullying is a trauma response to something,
to being bullied in some way at home. Yeah.
Right. Because kids act out and they act themselves where they feel safe. They don't feel safe at home. So they're being bullied at home. My kids are angels at school. They come home and it's, and I'm like, why? Why? Like, why? And someone said that to me, a child therapist or something said that to me, is they act out where they feel safe. So I was like, so it's a good thing, I guess,
Right.
But they're modeling, kids that are bullies at school are modeling what they see at home. They're being bullied at home, guaranteed, and they don't feel safe at home to let that out. It has to go somewhere. They feel safe at school, so that's where they do it, sadly.
Isn't that, it's interesting to really just look at, how unnatural so much of life actually is. We say, you come here, you grow up, you learn and you grow and whatever, but it really depends on where you are. How you see things depends on where you live in a lot of cases.
Let me bring it back to let me bring it back to our topic. I think a lot of us grew up with in some cases, very dysfunctional families. And what I made a conscious decision of is it ends here. I will not pass that on to the next generation. And that's a conscious change. I decided, as a couple, we decided we are not passing that trauma on to the next generation. And so that is, decided to change in how we raise our kids as opposed to how we were raised.
It's interesting that you say that, because when I first started with doing energy work, one of the conversations is that as you work on yourself to raise your own vibration, it can create dissonance in your home with in your home and with other people who aren't along for the ride and raising their own vibration as well. And I remember saying to that person that said that to me, I said, well, I said, I've got a ways to go to catch up to my husband.
Oh.
You know, and it's the truth though. I literally had a way to go. And what made me think of it is that you said you made the conscious decision, John, it stops here. And my husband, lots of things in childhood where he said, no, he told me he decided when he was young, this is not how I'm going to be in my life.
Yep.
This is not what I want to be.
Yep.
I see this. I don't appreciate it. I don't want to be it. So to have an awareness like that, I mean, when you don't really have the guidance, says to me that, you know, maybe not all environments, don't count somebody out necessarily because of their environment or how they were raised, right?
Yep.
Like, I mean, it just, it's really amazing if you think about it, you know?
It's a balance of nature and nurture, you know, it's not all, or it's not one or the other. Some people are just born with that kind of like insight, right? And are like, I'm not going to be a victim of my upbringing and I'm not going to pass it on. And then others choose to. Yeah, I think it's a conscious decision.
Well, I mean, we very often do what we learned when we were children. Now, me, you know, I started raising myself when I was 16. So that's an entirely different, like now all of a sudden there is no safe place. There was no, I mean, I had a home. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't homeless.
Oh, when you came to raise your kids, Angie, did you ever come to a point where you would think back and think, you know what? I feel like doing such and such, but I'm not going to pass on that anger. I
wish.
No,
I wish. I was so damaged.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wish. I mean, it is what it is.
Sure.
You know, and we've all made peace with it. You know, I owned it, and you know, we're all good.
That's good.
But I wish.
Yeah.
You know, I really do. I wish, but it you know, I had no example, good or bad. It was just
right.
You know,
I think once my my spiritual journey started, which was when my son was very young, everything kind of changed at that point. It became, I guess, less reactive, but also realizing that there's I guess, I don't know how else to say it, a grave responsibility to pass on what I've learned in my journey to, you know, to my son.
That's amazing. That's really.
I think if I had him 5 years earlier, that wouldn't have been there, and I would have had a lot of, you know, regrets. I was kind of a jerk.
I can relate.
I can relate. Yeah. I say to my older kids all the time, I'm sorry for the way I raised you when I was like unhealed, when I was in my wounded self, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I was doing the best I could at the time, but looking back, it was like totally could have done better. But I have to have compassion for myself and grace with myself to you know, I did the best I could.
Yep.
And they're not horrible. They're good kids. I just see them struggling too. Do you know what I mean? With the same things. And I'm like, I wish I could have prepped you better, type of a thing, you know?
Yeah, that's, I mean, I think that sometimes I sit and I look at this state of, you know, how things are now with social media and the videos and TikTok and what have you.
That's hard.
And I think, I wonder, was there anything we could have anticipated to prepare?
No.
Prepare, you know, I mean, and then of course the I get it, why don't you part of me says, well, if social media is a problem, which the Surgeon General has come out and said, you know, we have epidemics and mental health issues are on the rise and all these things. What the hell is an 8-year-old doing with a cell phone?
I won't give it to mine.
Same.
Mine do not have access. They do. My 13-year-old doesn't have. She has a device that she has 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon. It's very restricted. It's like set for a 5-year-old. Like no social media, no TikTok, no Snapchat, no Facebook, no Instagram, nothing, none of that. For my 13-year-old.
Yep.
Yeah,
I refuse.
Well, I think that's as it should be, right? It's
Yeah,
just
I
too
agree.
much of a distraction.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this game, I'm not going to name the name because I'm sure it's trademarked, but you know, that one that starts with an R that the kids are all into.
Nope. Won't allow it.
And the kid, I mean, I know somebody who's got a 9-year-old who, you know, is all into it. And I'm like, have you not heard of the predators on this thing? Pretending to be kids? Like, what are we doing? Whatever happened to go outside and come in when the streetlights came on? You know?
I tell mine all the time. I'm like, go outside.
Yep.
We have a perfectly safe neighborhood. We live in a cul-de-sac. Our neighbors are amazing. Like kids go in and out of everybody's home, right? It's really like wonderful. And it backs up to woods. Go outside and play in the woods with the fairies like I used to.
Right?
No, they want to be on their devices. Nope.
So, I mean, I think that we really, you know, the beginning of the conversation now has told us that so much of what has happened to us in our childhood can speak to how we handle change as we get older and as we, you know, as we are adults.
Yeah.
John, you did say something that I wanted to just address in case somebody hasn't heard me say it before on this stream, and you said that you became less reactive. And so I want everyone to remember balanced energy is resilient energy, and resilient energy is less reactive. That's how it works. And so as you move into your, you know, go on the spiritual journey and start being more mindful and meditating, you're getting your own energy in balance. And then when things come at you, you don't have those knee-jerk reactions. You don't have those triggers. You don't react like you might have. Whenever you scream at your kids, it's not because of what they did.
Yeah, it's right.
It's not. It's just not.
It's yourself.
It's you know, it is. It's whatever. It's a trauma response in you for whatever reason. So, I guess the biggest change we, as a collective here, have gone through is probably this, what do you call, spiritual awakening, or however you want to put it, right?
Healing, I think Melanie said.
I think I like that, healing, the idea of it being healing. I also look at some of it as remembering, you know, like just remembering. There's things I remember that used to happen when I was younger that start to happen now. I shut a lot of stuff down, you know, as time went on. So this is a change that a lot of people, have you ever seen and I haven't seen so much, I probably had enough of them now that I don't see them anymore, but they, you know, all these memes there used to be about, oh, this awakening is so miserable and this spiritual awakening is horrible and it's just so hard. And it just made me crazy to see all that, you know, like being an empath is miserable. And it's like, stop saying that and it won't be quite so miserable, right?
Have you ever heard of the law of attraction? What are you doing?
Yeah.
So what do you know, like, what was the first thing that you did when you started on the sort of spiritual side of the, you know, what did you embrace first?
I can, let me jump in. Of course, it was a book, right?
Of course.
I read a book about happiness because I just wasn't happy. And I'm like, you know what? Am I supposed to be? And if I am, why am I not? And so that was one of the first books I read. And it led to another one called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. I'm like, And that one was like, you're probably doing this little loop in your head, self-deprecating. I'm like, yep, I am. Like, oh, I can turn that off. And I learned that what you say when you talk to yourself isn't set in stone. You can actually change the conversation. I was like, this is amazing. And it was like the first big aha moment for me. So that was really exciting, making that change.
Interesting. So I was having a conversation with somebody today, and I love that you brought up the idea of, what you say to yourself. This person is a therapist, and I'm just writing down just so I remember when I get to the words. When you do a ritual or say an affirmation or do this mirror work, there's a part of the brain called the reticular activating system.
Yep.
And when you do that, it lives there, and it literally creates real change in the way. So in other words, whatever you're saying to yourself, this reticular activating system believes.
Mm-hmm.
So you better start telling it the truth.
Yeah.
Not the,
Yep. Give it joy.
I am worthy, and I deserve, and I'm happy, and and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting. I remember years ago, and the guy has since passed, but his name, there was a speaker at a Virginia, at a Liberty Tax convention. His name was Keith Harrell, and his whole, in fact, you could probably still get his book. His whole program was choose your attitude. Your attitude is a choice. And he was the first one that said to me, stop watching the news. Like this is before there was ever any spiritual, connection to anything I was doing. Stop watching the news because you're taking in that, he didn't put it in terms of energy, but when I think about
but
it,
it's affecting
really
how you think.
Energy. And it is. And nobody ever said your attitude is a choice.
Right. We all thought it was part of, that's my personality.
Right? Your attitude is a choice. So
putting that on yourself.
I mean, maybe the conversation about change is, some of those changes that we can make in ourselves.
Yes.
And
if you want to change, you can.
Yeah. And I have a really good story. I'm going to tell it really quick because we still have time. Actually, it was in that same bar that I worked at where remember when we talked about the margarita glass that flew off?
Favorite story.
So in this bar, it was a Mexican restaurant, and it was a bar, and it was one of my favorite jobs. Bartending there was just my favorite. But on Saturday night, there was karaoke. And I'm here to tell you, if you think karaoke is fun, you got to be around it when all the other people that think it's fun, that are either drunk or just plain can't sing. And so the first 3 or 4, maybe even 5 weeks that I worked it, I went home with a headache. I was miserable. I just couldn't stand it. It was just, my ears are funky anyway. So hearing all this, these dissonant tones and all that, and these people, I look back at them now and I think, oh my God, how amazing that they thought they were, that they were having such a great time. They were horrible. I'm just here to tell you, not everybody can sing. I'm just here to tell you that, but some can. But then all of a sudden I said, I am sick of having this headache. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of having this headache. So I said, I'm going to just see what happens if I do this. And so I started doing things like rolling up cocktail napkins and sticking them in my ears. And I would walk around with a sign, aspirin, 25 cents. Or if somebody did a really good job, we had this ship spell, and I would bang on the bell, stuff, things like that. And then all of a sudden, people would ask me, have you been planted back there by the karaoke company? They thought I was a plant because I was getting people stirred up and getting them to drink and to spend money and to tip. And I was like, oh my God, you literally you can actually change what's happening around you. You can have an effect, and it not only on yourself, but on, everybody's there. It was really literally my first lesson in choose your attitude, choose your own, because
wow.
I got tired of being miserable. Like, I mean, I would go home with a headache that just, you know, nothing would take care of. And so what changes can we make? All right. Are we all in different decades? I'm in the 60s.
I was born in 67.
I was born in 77.
Okay. And I was born in 59. So we're
Yeah.
actually like all three of us are in different decades. So what kind of changes can we make for moving forward, you know, to embrace change? Or how can we change our minds or change our attitudes to embrace the things that are coming? Because I think a lot of times people don't like change because they're afraid of what they don't know. They're afraid of the unknown.
And that goes back to being able to live with incomplete information.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
go ahead.
One of the things that's most helpful is this too shall pass. So if it is something difficult, if you know it's not permanent, right? Whatever you're going through isn't permanent, good or bad. But if this too shall pass, like, okay, whatever it is, I'll get through it. And there's light, you know, there's something else on the other side.
Because the more often you do that, the more often it just becomes habit, right? I remember, and I don't remember when exactly it was, probably 50, maybe even 20 years ago, where somebody said we were embarking on a project. And I remember this person saying to me, well, I can do anything for 3 days. You know, just like, I can do anything for 3 days. And I know there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? Like, so you start, you see that it's only 3 days, you get halfway through, it's, you know, you only have a day and a half left, and then there's an end and you're done. Like, I can do anything for 3 days or 3 weeks or a week, or you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
you have that.
It's like taking charge, right?
Yep.
That's right. You have the understanding.
And I think really, like, if you're already spiritual and you're already kind of intuitive, like, really tune into your guides and lean on them. I was thrust into severe change 5 years ago, and I always like identified as a complete control freak. So like, I'm in control of everything. And I was thrust into this situation unwillingly. And I remember I've heard my guides my entire life, and I always was like, that's the voices in my head, I'm crazy. And they were like, will you listen to me now, please? And I'm like, okay, fine. Like, that's all I can do. I have zero control in this. And so I was like, fine, I'm going to listen to you. That's all I can control, is listening to my guidance and my attitude. That's all I could control at the time. And that was significant change, and we navigated it. Like, we went through it, and all I could control was my attitude. So picked myself up by my bootstraps and, you know, did what I had to do. And that's all I could control is my attitude.
That's interesting. So understanding that now actually puts you in a good place, that if there is some other change that comes along, you'll be much better equipped to deal with it.
Exactly.
And it's interesting that you say that, because I had this realization. I do everything. You guys know that. You've heard me say that on the show. Like, I handle everything. That just is what it is. I mean, I even said something about, you know, DirecTV. He said, well, I don't call those people. Why? Because I do.
Because you do, like,
So I am accustomed to that control, and that control is very comfortable for me. Like, I know what's going to happen.
Right.
So one day, Bentley the dog accidentally got out, and he never goes out without a leash. I never let him out without a leash. He's always on a leash. He is a pit bull, but he's 17 now. I mean, who knows? So he got out. I was told, I think the dog got out. I lost it. I mean, I literally lost it. Why? Because I didn't know where the dog was. I couldn't control what was going to happen to the dog. I literally lost it. And I was like, oh man, there's something here I need to work on, because you can't. And the thing is, I think you've heard me say it's my son's dog, but he lives with me, whatever. But he lives across the street. So I called him and he answered right away. And I was like, oh my God, Bentley got out. And I was flipping my wig. Like, I lost it. And he's like, it's fine. Ma, he's fine. I'm like, he's not fine. I don't know where he is. He's fine. And then we spotted him. And then I got him, and herded him over to my son. I said, now you need to get him in the house. I have to go in. I can't breathe.
Oh.
Because but that whole idea of control.
Mm-hmm.
So is being a control freak or having that kind of control, is that counter to the idea of change? Like, if you worked on that, would change be easier for you?
I think so. When I let go of control and my need to know every detail of everything and how it's going to work out, when I let go of that and just release and let whatever happen, and trust that whatever happens will be for the greatest good of all, it's a lot easier for me. Personally.
Yeah, and there I guess there's levels to that, right? Because I believe that whatever happens to me is for the greatest good. I believe that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
I believe that. But I haven't extended that to the dog, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, so there's always something more you can work on.
And maybe you had a little bit of fear there with him being a pit.
Absolutely, I did.
I mean, I would have. I'd been like, oh my God, they're going to get him and they're going to take him to the pound and euthanize him. And even if he just for being a pit, and not even necessarily doing anything.
Yep. You just don't, and he was right there. Like but we're not far from a big road. I mean, it was just,
so much. Yeah. So many,
but because it's always so controlled, right? Like, it is so controlled that he's been on a leash. I've had him on a leash forever. That even if I don't have him on the leash and I'm somewhere not even here, if you bump into me, I don't move, because I've learned to plant my feet, because one time he pulled me off the end of the porch. Right.
Oh no.
So after that happened, because somebody was sitting down there and she's like, oh, look at you, how cute you are, aren't you adorable? And he was like, oh yeah, cool.
Oh yay.
At me.
I have a story similar to that, Angie. So, I was well along in my spiritual journey, and I had a very difficult problem with one of my family members, and I won't go into the details, but I had been meditating. I'd been had been writing my book. I'd been following these principles and thinking like, all right, I think I figured it out. And then I had an incident where this family member pushed the wrong button and I just lost it. And the very first thought after that was like, crap. I thought I had things figured out, and I don't. But it was so disheartening to realize I wasn't done.
But I don't think we ever are done. I think it's like onions. There's layers, right? It's like we heal the first, and then there's another layer, and there's another layer, and it's like, this is coming up again, really? Like, I thought I healed it.
What again?
No, there's another layer that you have to heal it. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, there is that for sure. There are, it's always layers of onion, but there is something else. There's something else that I noticed. I noticed it for myself, because I'm sure you've heard me say, I don't do anxiety. I don't see the value in it. I don't do anxiety. I literally don't. However, it's not that I don't have anxiety. So I have figured out how to subconsciously store anxiety away somewhere in my energy, so that when I do energy work or I have somebody work on me, if you find that pocket of anxiety, I will freak for a second until it passes.
Wow.
So I would say to you that in a case like that, whatever the source of that is, so based on whatever the situation was about.
Right.
Is in not just consciously accepting it, but actually like packing it into something and releasing it for being to be transmuted. And you know, because energy can't be
created or destroyed. Yep.
Created or destroyed, only transmuted, right? Like, so if I mean, one of the fun ones always in energy sessions was we used to pack things into a barrel and blow them up, you know, visualization, blow them up. Like, so that, which is not to say there won't be something that underneath it that will come up, but sometimes things that are such a strong response are really things that are still hanging around that you thought you
had taken care of.
That's why if you do any limiting belief work and you have a list of limiting beliefs and you go, okay, let me work on this one. And then you do the work on it, you do the affirmations, you create the whatever. And then 6 weeks later, you go back and all of a sudden, oh, you get a yes on the same limiting belief. You're like, wait a minute, I thought I dealt with that. Yeah, but you packaged it somewhere. You didn't clear it all the way out.
Interesting.
So,
I should really do that. That's really interesting. That sounds like a really, really powerful exercise.
Yeah, and it's fun anyway. Love stuff. Like, I mean, who doesn't want to do that? Like, you can't get in any trouble. It doesn't make a loud noise. Like,
no
go
cleanup?
for it. No cleanup, right? Well, unless it generates some ectoplasm, but not, right? Wow. I mean, I really can't believe here we are at 40 minutes already. Like, where does the time go?
We just got started.
I know. It feels like there's so much more to talk about when it comes to change, but let's do this final question. I know for me personally, you know, in 2015, when I started on this spiritual journey, I have changed significantly.
Me
and
too.
So here's my question. Would you ever go back? Would you ever go back to the way that you were?
Nope.
Cannot.
No, right?
Never.
Anything that I've gone through on this journey, some of there's been, you know,
painful.
A few things, but most of it for me has been positive. I intended that way. I just wouldn't change. I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't go back. I believe it's put me exactly where I belong. And then here I am sitting with the two of you on top of it. So there you go.
Yeah. You know, some of the painful things I went through were difficult, but knowing that how I grew through them, like, oh man, I'm so thankful that was the result. You know, what do they say? You can either get better or bitter.
Right.
And somehow better.
Yes. Better.
Yeah, that's the same. I would never go back, and I would never, even the things that I've been through, I can see the beauty in them, and I'm glad that we went through that. Through everything. I'm glad I went through everything. And I'm thankful for it. Because I don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen here because he's old. That's all.
These are young girls.
They're cute. Anyway, look. They're like, right. Excuse me, we don't want to be in here anymore. It's all right. You're all good. Anyway, yeah. So all the same. So for you folks that are listening or have listened or listen in the future, please, if you don't mind, hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments. You know, how has change been for you? I think if there's continual change, there's continual opportunities for progress and for moving forward.
Right. You know what they say? You can't move a parked car.
Yeah.
Right. Or you can't steer a parked car. That's what it is.
Oh, yeah. Right.
You can't steer.
Yeah. I mean, you really can't. So, yeah,
right.
You can't. Time to change. Oh, like that Brady Bunch song.
When it's time to change.
Yep.
There's a piece
all
of
right. Well, thank you guys. And we'll let y'all listeners know what we're going to talk about next week.
If we figure it out.
When it rolls around, we'll figure it out. But thank you for listening. We really enjoy having these conversations with you and for you. And we've got a few things interesting coming up. So we'll just see you soon. Thank you so much.